Hey, hello everyone. It's Joe, your love life transformation specialist, and I'd like to welcome you to tonight's live stream. As always, those of you who are just going to jump on, you're going to get here. Probably going to take you a little while to jump in. So for those of you who are already here, just kind of hang out. Now, as always, I want to connect with you. I want to know who's watching, who's here. So what I'd like you to do is to just say, hey, Joe. It's Mary calling in from Alberta. It's Betty in Texas. It's Marianne in Michigan. Wherever you are, just say, hey, let me know that you're out there. And first and foremost, that lets me know that this is actually working, because I can't tell you how many times I've done presentations or webinars where I've spoken and then I hung up and then I got a call, an hour later, or an email going, hey, where are you? So just want to make sure this is happening. So I see, oh, this is an interesting. Dia from Iraq. Well, Dia, I hope if I pronounced that correctly, Dia, please say, yes, you got it right. But welcome. This is our first person who ever called in from Iraq, or who's ever watched from Iraq. So this is absolutely awesome. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Those of you, again, if you're just jumping in, say, hi, my name is whatever your name is. Make sure you use your name and where you're watching from. So we'll give a minute or two to let everybody, jump on board, because I did start at exactly at 8:30, right? It's 8:30 here in New Jersey on the East Coast. So yes, I got it right. Beautiful. Well, I got to tell you, I'm a stickler for names because I have a very simple name. Well, Joe is obviously simple. You're not going to mess it up. But my last name is so simple, and people have been bastardizing it my whole life. So so I pay really, really close attention just to looking at names and sounding out phonetically. So I'm glad I got that right. So again, welcome to you. So it's Beth Ray from Amory, Wisconsin is here. Wisconsin is in the house. Roxanne from Arizona. Oh, I love Arizona. Arizona, beautiful weather. You can be shorts all year round. So might be a place that, who knows, I may wind up one day. So again, those of you who are jumping in, what I want you to do, because we're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight, we're going to talk about chemistry. And it's one of the most important topics, I believe, that should be discussed, that isn't discussed. And I believe this topic, this thing called chemistry, causes so many problems for you and a lot of other single women and single men. So today we're going to talk about chemistry, what it is, what it isn't, and what role does it really play? Because I can't tell you how many conversations I've had in the last few years with women who have said, Joe, there was just no chemistry. I went on a date and there was just no chemistry. And, I'm dating this guy. He's nice. He does this. He's a gentleman. He's respectful. He does all things. But there's just no chemistry. And it kind of blows my mind. And I understand. I'm going to share my story a little later. That I'm not here to say that chemistry isn't important. There needs to be that it. But very often what you think chemistry is some unrealistic expectation based on when you were 18, 19, 20, 22, and you think that you need that in a relationship. And that's fine when you're in your 20s, when you're in your late teens, and when you're in your 20s. But if you're an adult and you're looking for a long-lasting relationship, to expect and to look for that chemistry you had when you were a teenager or you were in your early 20s is not only unreasonable, it's very unrealistic. So tonight we're going to talk about, again, what chemistry is, what is chemistry, and what it isn't. So what I believe is that there's so much confusion around this thing called chemistry. And if you're in the Facebook community, you know that I put out a question. And that question is, what is chemistry to you? And so I got a couple answers. So just going to review them briefly. This is just some of the answers that we've got. Okay? Chemistry is when one completes the other. It's when you understand each other and accept the differences that are between you. It's a quick attraction that makes you feel all hot and bothered and slowly drives you crazy with wonder. Chemistry is when you both sizzle with zest for each other. It's instant attraction with sparks flying. It's when you get each other. Great communication, personality connection, similar values and beliefs. That equals whole person connection and chemistry. It's the initial attraction to another person. It's the newness of it all wrapped up in wonder and intrigue, driven by feel-good chemicals flooding your brain. It's mostly the initial physical sexual attraction that we feel towards another human being. Now, you see, a lot of these have something in common. And you also see that they're very different. So everyone has their definition of what chemistry is. Now I'm here to tell you, my goal tonight isn't to tell you my definition of chemistry, although I will share that with you. It's to help you understand what is your definition of chemistry, to get clear on it, because I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with women who said, I need it. It's that something. And I go, okay, well, what is it? And it's got, well, it's a feeling, and, it's, I don't know, but I just know it. And I'm like, and this is every time I hear this and I have a conversation with a woman, I said, let me ask you a question. How many guys have you dated or had relationships with where you felt that amazing chemistry in the beginning? And, very often they'll say that they've had one or a few. And then I followed up with this question. How many of those guys ever turned into the long-lasting relationship partners that you were looking for? And invariably, the answer is always 0. So we're going to test this theory again. For those of you who are watching, what I want you to do is answer this question. You know what chemistry is to you, right? How many of the guys and relationships that you've had where you've had this great, amazing chemistry have led to the long-lasting, happy and fulfilling relationship, marriage, whatever it is for you, that you desire? Okay, just put in a number. Okay, it usually takes a while before all the numbers start coming in. But just, how many? So we're going to wait for those to come in. And the reason why I'm asking this question is because I want you to realize, okay, Linda says that there's one, okay. So, well, as the others come in, Linda, I have a question for you. It lasted into, Barbara says 0. Linda says 1. Linda, are you still in that relationship? Are you still in that marriage? Okay. Because I created GPS for Love to understand how to create a long-lasting, happy, and fulfilling relationship that you can sail off into your golden years with that person that loves you and is your life partner. And Linda says, no, she's a widow, that the person she was with who passed away. So she was very fortunate. She was very lucky. Because the truth is, based on my studies, 85% of individuals will go to their graves never having the happy, fulfilling, long-lasting relationship that they truly desire. That doesn't mean that they won't have relationships. It doesn't mean that they won't get married. It means that they'd never have the really happy, fulfilling, long-lasting relationship. So as you see, as the comments are coming in, except for Linda, who's a window who was fortunate enough and blessed to have that, nobody else did. Okay, so that proves my point. We have to look at this thing called chemistry, and that's what I do. As a love life transformation specialist, what I do is I just pick things apart. I analyze them. I put them through the filter. I put them through the ringer to see what's really true here, because there's so much BS that we've bought into, that we've been programmed with. And if you haven't seen the live stream I did on beliefs, I highly recommend you go back and watch that. Because what you believe is true. So if you believe you have to have this chemistry thing where you have to both sizzle with zest with each other, or you have to have these sparks flying, that you got to feel all hot and bothered and crazy with wonder, well, you're going to have these really awesome relationships that start off great and amazing, but then which fizzle out. So I'm here to show you and to talk about what to really focus on. Because when I met my wife, Natalie, and I'm very transparent, you know me, that there were no sparks, there was no sizzle, there was no zest, there was no... It was simply, you know what, she seems nice, seems to be the kind of person I'm looking for, I want to get to know her better. And if Natalie was here tonight, she would say the same thing. We always joke about it, When I was dating, I had this, I called it my date outfit, okay? I had this, really cool blazer with this awesome shirt, my dress jeans and these shoe boots. And anytime I went on a first date, that was like, okay, I'm putting this on because I think this is the best representation of me. And so I went out. And to this day, Natalie goes, yeah, those shoe boots you wore, they were kind of corny. And I'm like, really? I thought they were so cool. And she's like, nah. just different tastes. The point is, there was no hot and bothered, there was no zest, there was no lust. But why is it that we're here 18 years later in this amazing relationship where we're true life partners who love each other, who have chemistry, but also have all those other really important things that make a marriage work in this thing called life? So I see some more of you are jumping on. So again, as you're here, if there's something that you hear that you like, just hit the like button. Lets me know you're there. If it really resonates with your heart, hit the heart button. Again, just say hi if you're jumping in, because what I love about this forum is it's a great opportunity for us to connect and interact with each other, versus most of the other times in the YouTube videos where I'm just kind of speaking, giving you some stuff, and then saying goodbye, and we don't get to connect and interact. So I love this forum, and we're going to be doing it for a long time. So my goal, my intention for you tonight is to have some clarity around this thing called chemistry, so that you can ultimately go out and make it easier to find the love that you're looking for. So let's talk about what chemistry is, okay? Or what it isn't. So we're going to start off with this, because here's the problem. As we spoke earlier, most of us think that chemistry is this thing that we have to feel. It's I gotta feel it, and if I don't feel it in the first 5 minutes, then I know this relationship isn't gonna last. And that's really not a good way to go about trying to create a long-lasting relationship. So we're gonna talk about that. So I believe there are two types of chemistry. There's what I call the superficial chemistry, and then there's the deep chemistry. So I'm not one of those people who says, you know what, you shouldn't have chemistry. But what I'm all about is defining what is chemistry really. Now, before we talk about it, I want, just to prove my point again, is I actually looked up a couple of definitions on the word chemistry. Okay, we're not talking chemistry with, the periodic table and with elements and titration and acid and bases and things like that. We're talking about chemistry between a man and a woman. And so according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, chemistry is a strong attraction between two people. Now, for those of you who are children of the 70s and 80s, my generation, you actually remember having the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. It was that red dictionary, and when you didn't understand what a word was or you need to look up a word, you actually went and looked that up. So if you remember that, you're from that generation, just go ahead and hit that like. Okay? Okay, so then I went and looked on Wikipedia. And according to Wikipedia, chemistry is the emotion that two people get when they share a special connection. Okay, pretty good. And then I went to the Google, because the Google is today's generation's dictionary. You want to know anything? There's no Encyclopedia Britannica. There's no Merriam-Webster's dictionary. There's just the Google. So the Google is the source of everything. So I went to the Google, and Google says that chemistry is a complex emotional and psychological interaction between two people. So here, these are three great sources of information, of definitions. And they're similar, but they're different. So if the main sources can't all agree, how the hell are we going to agree? So we really need to define what chemistry really is and what chemistry isn't. So again, I believe that there are two types of chemistry. There's the superficial, well, let's say here, chemistry. Okay, so there's two types. So there's the superficial chemistry, and then the deep chemistry. So what do I mean by superficial chemistry? That's the chemistry that you experience when you were in your teens and your early 20s. You meet a guy, he's amazing, he's attractive, he makes you laugh, you see him, you want to jump his bones. That's, where you have that zest, that instant, that's where you feel sparks. That's superficial, okay? It's very surface, and it's fun and exciting when you're a teen. But those relationships never last. And if you focus on that superficial chemistry, it's never going to turn into the relationship that you're looking for, and we're going to discuss why. So I found, or I believe, that there are two major components of superficial chemistry. The first, let me get here. Change one. The first is physical attraction, and the second is emotional connection. Okay, so physical attraction and emotional connection. So if you were to step out of your life and take some mirror time and get honest with yourself and look at those relationships where you had that chemistry when you were younger, what you're going to see is that there was intense physical attraction. You were really attracted to the guy. You know, you would see him and, you know, you'd get all moist and it's like, ooh, I want to jump your bones and, you know, all that stuff, right? Come on, you know what I'm talking about. Or there was this emotional connection, you know, where he got you. You know, I hear that all the time. He just got me. You know, we had so much in common. We laughed and we just lost each other in each other's eyes. Okay, that superficial chemistry is based on these two things, right? And if you agree with that, simply go ahead and hit the like button. And if you don't agree with it, tell me why you don't agree with it. It's okay. This is a forum. I'm not here to make anybody wrong. I want to understand why you think and feel differently. Okay, I'm just trying to explain what I feel based on my experience and my creating that awesome, amazing relationship. So let's see. Okay, so we'll get some of these questions in a while. So, okay, so we have superficial chemistry, which is physical attraction and emotional connection. Again, that's like a drug. It feels great while you're getting high, but once the high wears off, then you're down in the gutter, then you're looking for more, and that's why you want more of it. That's generally why people or women and men who are older keep looking for that chemistry, because they remember that feeling of when they were high on chemistry back when they were younger, and they crave that and they want that. But it never leads to a long-lasting relationship. Why, you may ask? Oh, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to tell you why. Because there's a third thing that most people don't look for. And that third thing is, this is where we get into the deep. So in the deep chemistry, we have physical attraction, emotional connection, plus compatibility. Okay? Now, just to let you know, this doesn't happen for women, it happens for men. When I was younger, I'll be the first to admit, and actually even into my 30s, I went for that chemistry. I would go out with a woman and I was looking to feel that chemistry. And when I felt that chemistry, and she felt it too, the next thing I knew, I would be in a relationship with someone. And then somewhere down the road, and I actually had a pattern in my relationships, usually most relationships between 6 to 9 months, I realized I didn't want to be with her because that chemistry no longer was there. Or she realized she didn't want to be with me. And that was all but one of my relationships. Okay? So I'm sharing this with you because I want you to understand that if you're going to have that long-lasting, fulfilling relationship, you can't just focus on the chemistry, these two things, because that's superficial chemistry. It's not going to last. You've got to focus on compatibility. So how does that work? Glad you asked. I'll show you how it works. So after I realized that chemistry wasn't working and it was leading me to bad relationship partners and it never led to the relationship I wanted, I said, you know what? I need something more because I need that lifetime compatibility. And then I started focusing on that. I started asking my questions. I started taking some mirror time. And that's how I came up with my checklist for love. And I got clear on what were the things that I needed from a partner for her and I to be compatible. And then I started focusing on that because I knew that if I was compatible with someone, the physical attraction was either going to be there or there wasn't, right? Because you're either physically attracted to someone or you're not. You know, no matter how much you're unattracted to somebody, no matter how great their personality is, no matter what a good person they are, no matter how big their heart is, if you're not attracted to them at all, there's no way you can be in a relationship with someone. I don't care who you are. You know, anybody who says looks isn't important is full of crap. You have to be attracted to someone on some level. Now, that being said, there needs to be a base level of attraction. I'm not talking about that level of attraction that so many shoot for, where, you know, he's got to have perfect hair, perfect eyes, perfect teeth, a perfect abs, perfect car, perfect 401k. I'm not talking about that. I'm sorry, I went a little off on a tangent there. I'm talking about the physical attraction where, it's got to be the perfect specimen, the perfect physical specimen. Okay. As opposed to, and again, that's what I did. I was quite transparent. You've heard me say this over and over again. If those of you who are new haven't heard this, I would go for the girls who were 9 and 10s in my eyes. And those 9s and 10s never led to the relationships I was looking for. So then I said, you know what? Instead of going for 9s and 10s, I'm going to go for 7 and 8s, which are still attractive women, but they weren't at that level that I was used to. So I wasn't going for 2s. I wasn't going for 3s. I was going, in my eyes, what was a 7, what was an 8. And as a result of that, I opened myself up to different types of women that I wouldn't have normally dated because I didn't have that chemistry with them. Because now I was focused on the compatibility. So when I met my wife, she was, 7 and an 8. Okay, and now I know some of you, how can you categorize your wife like that? My wife is perfectly fine with it because when she met me, she felt the same way. So it's not a matter of saying that, she's this or she's that or she's not attractive. She was attractive. She just wasn't a beauty queen. Okay, neither was I. And we're both perfectly okay with that. So I just want you to understand that you've got to focus on this compatibility first. And then after you focus on compatibility, okay, if you're not attracted to him, great. If you are, great. Then do we have an emotional connection as well? Do we get along? Are we on the same page? Do we have complementary personalities? Do we have some things in common? Is our relationship easier? And so I promise you, if you focus on deep chemistry and understand that there's 2 types of chemistry, and you focus on compatibility first, and then after you focus on that, you go for physical attraction and emotional connection, it'll be so much easier to find the relationship you want. Because if you look at all those definitions of chemistry that I read you a little earlier, that's where you get into trouble. Because you go after that guy and you feel a certain way and you get excited, and there are actually parts of your brain that light up like a pinball machine. They get so excited, your hormones, your glands, just start firing and producing certain hormones and chemicals, and you're all worked up and you're not seeing straight, and you're drinking the Kool-Aid, and you're high on love, or what you think love is. And then when that high wears off and things come down and you settle into who you both really are, you realize that you're not compatible with this person. He's not a good relationship partner. Now, again, that's why you have to understand chemistry isn't about finding just a nice guy who's boring, that you're not attracted to, that you don't have an emotional connection. It's a matter of finding the guy who can do all 3 of these things. Because when you find a guy that does all 3 of these things, that's when you hit the home run. That's when you find the love of your life. That's when you have real, long-lasting, happy, and fulfilling chemistry. The kind that you really want, not the kind that you thought you want, because there's a big difference. So, is this making sense to you? I hope it is. Now I'm going to kind of look at some questions. If you have any questions, any concerns, you need me to clarify anything up. So as I do that, just go ahead and put your comments down. All right, so let's see what we got here. All right. I like the 2 types of chemistry, have experienced both. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them down. My goal is to try and get in here tonight, just give it to you straight, give you something that you take and apply to your love life to start making better results. So if you have no other questions, what I'm going to do is, as always, give you a little takeaway. Again, this is great. If you sit here, you watch this and go, oh, this was really nice, and you do nothing with it, it's going to be a waste of your time. Okay? Knowledge without implementation is a waste of time, is a waste of energy. So the goal is for you to take what you're learning and put it into action. So to do that, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. What is the biggest thing that you're going to take away from this? What is it that you learned? What is it that made sense? And how is it going to help you? What's going to be different for you as you go forward? What's going to be different, or what are you going to do differently as you put yourself back out there trying to find the love of your life? So you can go ahead and answer that either now, tomorrow, whenever it works for you. Okay? So that's the first thing I'm going to ask you to do. Okay. The second thing, as always, is we're creating a movement here. What's really cool, we've been doing this about 4 weeks now. We've already doubled the number of people who are in the GPS for Love Facebook community. So it's really cool. So for those of you who are sharing, who are helping us get these videos out, I love and appreciate you. And so what we're going to ask you to do, as always, is 3 things. The first thing we're going to do is ask you to like the page. Just go ahead and hit the little like button. For those of you who are watching this over on Facebook, what you need to do is follow our page. This way, when we put our posts up, when we announce we're doing videos, when we go live, it'll be automatically in your feed. You'll actually see it. So to do that, just make sure that the button next to like says following. If it just says follow, you need to click on it and then it'll say following. And the last thing, which is the most important, which helps build this community, is to simply share this video. Okay. And I always say, don't share it with 10 million people. Just, the 1 or 2 people who you feel can really benefit from it, who are open to this kind of information. And if you can just do that, I'd be eternally grateful. Now, if you're over watching this on a replay on our YouTube channel, you can do the same thing. Like us, okay? Share it, okay? And subscribe to the channel. So instead of follow, subscribe to our channel. So if you're over on YouTube, like, subscribe, and share, okay? So that being said, before we go, it looks like a couple of questions have come in. So Bonnie says, yes, makes perfect sense. This information is so beneficial. First time I ever heard the 3 types of chemistry. All right, cool. Okay, determine compatibility takes time. Chemistry is faster. How to determine compatibility first. Okay, this is where you've got to be clear. It amazes me, like, when I say, what are you looking for in a guy? And well, I want a nice guy, that I'm attracted to, that, has a good job. And I'm like, really? Like, I've never met a woman who says, you know what? I want a guy who's an asshole, who's unemployed, that I'm so turned off by. I mean, it sounds crazy. It's like, you have to know, if you're going to spend the rest of your life with someone, what is it that you're looking for? What is it important for you? What is important for you? What are your deal breakers? If you don't know this now and you're not clear on that, then you better take some time to get clear on it, because trying to figure it out on the run causes a lot of problems. The reason why I was able to know within a few months that Natalie was a person that was the love of my life is because I had my checklist for love. I knew these are the 7 things that I needed if I was going to spend the rest of my life with someone. And I focused on those things, and I made sure that she didn't just do them in the first day, the first week, the first month, that she did it consistently throughout our relationship. Because I knew if she did it consistently throughout our relationship, that it was normal, that it was natural. And I used to sit back. I remember as if it was, I would sit back. Because, again, you always fall in love with the person's representative. They misrepresent themselves. So I was waiting for the shoe to drop. I was waiting for her, the skeletons to start coming out of the closet, for the baggage to come to the surface. But the more I was with her, the more I realized that, this is who she is. She is naturally the person that I'm looking for. I don't have to make her be this person. I don't have to tell her what I'm looking for. She just naturally does it. And I am 100% convinced, 1,000% convinced that the reason why we have the relationship we have today is because we both were that clear in the beginning. So if you're not clear on what you need from a partner to be compatible, I strongly suggest you take some time to determine that. Okay? All right. So how long to determine compatibility? Usually within a few months. I mean, look, there's sometimes you'll know on the first date we're not compatible. Okay, sometimes it'll take a few dates, sometimes it'll take a few weeks, but never more than a few months. A person will, if you understand human behavior and how people operate, a person will always reveal their true colors within a relatively short amount of time. The key is being able to not focus on that chemistry and focus on the compatibility. One of the problems is people so focus on the on the chemistry that they ignore that they're not compatible. There are red flags flying all around, but they make excuses for them. They justify, they rationalize, or they simply ignore them. I have not had one conversation with a woman in the several years I've been doing this when we didn't go back and get honest, and she admitted that, you know what, yeah, there were signs there. There were things he was doing or things he wasn't doing. My gut was telling me that, this wasn't right, that I deserved better, but I stayed. I ignored the red flags. I talked to him, he said he would change, and I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Okay, this whole journey is about getting real with yourself, being completely honest. Who are you? Are you the kind of person that a guy is going to commit the rest of his life to? You know, if you've got some baggage, you've got some shit you haven't dealt with, then go deal with it. Because no man is going to commit the rest of his life to a woman who's going to cause him emotional pain. Okay, I'm telling you that as a man. And that might upset you, it might piss you off, but it's the truth. I'd rather you know the truth now than me sugarcoat it and say, oh, well, you know, if you just do this and you put up a vision board and you hug a tree and sing Kumbaya, then you know what? A man is going to love you no matter what. It's unrealistic and it's simply not true. I'm telling you, I'm a guy. If we're going to commit the rest of our life to one woman and one woman only, we want to know two things. That woman makes us happy, makes us happier, and makes our life better with her in it versus having her out of it. So if you can show a man that his life is better with you in it, and he realizes that he's happier and his life is better with the presence of you in his life, that man, the right man, will have no problem committing to you. And any man who doesn't simply isn't the right guy. It really is that simple. So let's see. All right. So Bonnie says, I always went for the first two. Welcome to the club. We all do it, male and female. Bonnie says, love that checklist for love. Cool. Yes, makes perfect. Okay. Looks like we got it all. So now you know what to do. You've got your takeaway. Again, if you're watching this, let me know how this is working for you. If you have any suggestions how we can make this better, if there's something you're struggling with and you'd like to see a video on, that's one of the things we're going to be doing over the weekend. It's actually kind of putting some things out there saying, what are you struggling with? What do you need help with? You know, I'm here to help you. You know, the reason why I do this is because there was a time in my life where I was looking for love and I was struggling and I was learning through the school of hard knocks. And I invested in a relationship that I should have never even started if I was focusing on compatibility. If I was focused on that, I never would have went out more than 2 dates. But was focusing on that chemistry, got involved with someone I shouldn't have been involved with, got engaged to that person, and wound up investing 3 years in my life in a relationship that made me miserable. And I don't ever want that to happen to anybody. I wasn't lucky by finding Natalie. You know, God didn't just shine down on me. I did my work. I made the necessary changes that put me in position for God to do his work to send Natalie to me. And that's a story for a different day. Okay? So now you know what to do. You've got your assignment. Go do it. As always, an honor, privilege to be with you. I'll see you next time. Much love.